Everyone, it's Emily Fox. Today's video is going to be all about popular book series that I am not planning on continuing. I feel like there are so many books out there that if you're not feeling it, it should be perfectly okay to not continue some of them, and it should also be okay to just talk about it. So let's do this. To be completely honest, I do realize that a lot of these are YA ones, and I feel like it's because it's so prevalent on BookTube, people just talking about very popular YA series over and over again, that you catch yourself just wanting to read them, you try them, and it's okay if they just don't work for you. And there are also a few adult ones, so no worries. The first popular book series I need to talk about is Vampire Academy by Rochelle Mead. I picked this up at my library sale. They had like most of them right there. And I had heard so many people talk about this on BookTube actually, because when it came out, I was just focusing on school, so I had heard like nothing. I wasn't doing any reading basically that wasn't school reading. And I saw it at my library sale, decided to pick them up and to go through them and see how I felt about them. And I did read the first book and I enjoyed it fine. It wasn't like pretending to be like great literature or anything. And it was enjoyable for what it was. I think that the fact that I think we're all kind of sick a little bit of vampires, and the fact that there's quite a bit of romance in here, and I'm not someone that enjoys romance, so it just wasn't the best series for me. But I did actually let a friend go through all of them and she loved them. So really, they're still okay if that's your thing. But yeah, personally, I'm just not planning on continuing. I'm kind of satisfied after reading the first one. I'm sure there's still a bunch more that happens since there's like, what, like 6 books in this series, and they have like the spin-off out of it too. So yeah, I think I just have so many other books that I'm planning on reading. I'm not really in a rush to go through this, so I feel like I will never go back to it. And to be honest, the fact that there's a face on the cover doesn't make me want to keep it, you know? The next book, I'm not sure if people would consider it a popular series, but it is a popular book, and people might not realize that there's a second book, but I'm not planning on reading it, so. You by Carol Katniss. I read the first book, enjoyed it for what it was. It's a very, very messed up book. I feel like people now know more about it because of the TV show, which is just as messed up, and I appreciate that. Basically, you're following a stalker, stalking someone and trying to be in a relationship with her. And it was a good book because it's always saying like you, and you start like feeling very uncomfortable. And yeah, I realized that there's a second book, at least, like Hidden Bodies, I think, and I'm just never going to pick it up because, again, I was satisfied enough with this one. And it's not like this was a favorite, like an all-time favorite. Like, I enjoyed it, but I don't think I would actually even reread it because it's so messed up. But yeah, I'm just not planning on continuing. I don't think book 2 would really bring anything that would help book 1, you know what I mean? I feel like it would just bring down the series for me, so I'm happy with one book. The next book is not going to be a surprise. The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. It was my first time reading any of her book, and this one is about fairies slash human in a fairy world. And honestly, it's one of those books that once I put it down, I completely forgot what it was about. And like, I'm slightly exaggerating, but I have a really good memory, or so I like to think. And I have trouble remembering anything about this because it's just that forgettable. And I just didn't really care about the cliches that are in there, and I didn't really care about the like romance blooming towards the end because I felt like it just came out of nowhere, and I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. And I just have no interest in continuing the series, and I know book 2 already came out and people that did enjoy that one enjoy it, so if you enjoyed it, definitely pick up book 2, but I'm just never gonna continue the series, so it's just time that I admit it to myself. Like, there wasn't anything horrible in book 1, it's just that like I didn't really care, so like, why continue? So definitely will not be picking up the rest of the series. I have been in denial for a while about this book because I keep telling myself, oh, maybe I'll pick up book 3, maybe I will, and I still haven't, and honestly, I won't. To All the Boys I've Loved Before by Jenny On, I grabbed book 2, so I'm gonna show book 2 because it's the last one I did read, and it is P.S. I Still Love You. And I enjoyed book 1, but every time I talk about it, basically what I say is that it should have been one book, not a trilogy. I feel like everyone kind of knows what it is because of the movie, and I will be watching the second movie for sure because I think it's better as a movie to be stretched out. I feel like the characters and the fashion and everything are just more appealing in a book, in a movie form. But basically, a shy girl decides to write letters whenever she has a crush on someone, and one day all the letters are sent and she has to deal with the consequences. And like I said, book 1 was good. Book 2 was like straight up mess. Like the first half, absolutely nothing happens. And then the second half is just like things happen just to make a second love triangle to like continue the series. So book 2 was absolutely pointless, and I'm kind of just so mad that I don't really want to read book 3. So I don't think it's gonna happen. It's just, again, time for me to admit it. I keep telling myself that I will, but I still haven't, so. Oh, this one is a very, very popular YA sci-fi series on BookTube, and it is Illuminati. I did actually listen to Gemini on audiobook, and oh, I don't recommend you do that. I feel like this is interesting because of the format. You can see it's a lot of emails and it's like visually appealing. And the idea wasn't bad for book 1. It just book 2 kind of left me a bit meh. And because I was listening to it as an audiobook, I felt like it was super obvious how awkward the dialogues were between, like, listening to adults say those cringy stuff. I was just getting secondhand embarrassment for some reason. I get it very easily, which is probably why I don't like romance in books. But I just, like, this one was okay. Book 2 was very so I just have, like, no interest in continuing book 3, Obsidia? It starts with an O. But yeah, I'm not going to continue. Again, it's time for me to admit it. Why sci-fi? I feel like there's not that many sci-fi books that are popular, and I love sci-fi. So I really wanted to give this series a shot, but I feel like after 2 books, I tried. So the next book is something I debated for a while, deciding like, will I continue, will I not? But again, I read 3 books, so I think I really tried. A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J Maas. I still own book 2. I got rid of book 1, and book 3 I read, but I got it from my library, so that's kind of why I don't have it. I'm gonna keep book 2 because I did enjoy it. I would reread it, kind of a standalone type of book, which you can't skip book 1 if you're thinking about it. You need to go through it, which I found the romance so cringy, and I hated the love interest. And I can't say anything because I don't want to spoil anything, obviously, as always, but book 2 was so much better and actually felt like a fantasy. These are considered like new adult because there's a bunch of awkward sex scenes. Still was very awkward in book 2. But I enjoyed like the premise, and there was so much more action, and like the characters were very likable. There's like a group of friends, and that was great. But then book 3 kind of felt like a middle book. You know, the middle book syndrome of like nothing really happens. They're just like training for a battle for like forever and traveling to one place and another place, and like nothing really happened to me, for me. And yeah, I'm kind of just left, you know, I thought book 1 I could forget about if book 3 had been good also, and then like continue. But actually I went into book 3 thinking it was a trilogy, so I was really left disappointed. And there was like a 3.1 in between book 3 and 4 that came out, and I just didn't even pick it up. So really, again, it's time for me to just admit it to myself. None of that series exists except this one. So yeah, I kind of am just left. I don't think I'm going to continue unless someone tells me that book like 4 when it comes out is like the best book ever and it's like even better than this. Unless that happens, I will not be continuing the series. I am also not planning on continuing this series, Hitchhikers Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. I believe there are like 4 or 5 books in here, and I didn't realize that when I started it. And this book, I didn't like it. I was going to say I didn't hate it. Hate is like too strong of a word. It just kind of very absurd type of humor, and it's fine in and of itself. Like when I'm reading it, I'm like whatever, but the jokes out of context are funny-ish, but it's not something I'm obsessed over. It's not something that I need to binge read. Like I don't even know what else would happen in the rest of the series. It's perfectly satisfying on its own, and I just don't really have any interest in continuing. So again, it's a very, very popular book series, and I'm just not really interested in continuing. This is a sci-fi, and I can't even tell you much about the premise because it's just weird. A Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue. This came out 2 years ago, I think, during the summer, and I listened to it as an audiobook, and I would recommend doing so because I feel like I enjoyed it a lot more than I would if I was reading the physical copy of it. It was a very nice, fluffy, light YA fantasy read. There are some more serious topics in here, and it's kind of like, I don't remember the years, like 1800 something, and there's like LGBTQ plus characters, so obviously they do go through some struggle. But overall, it felt kind of fluffy, like going on an adventure type of thing. And again, I feel like I was satisfied with it. I feel like if I read book 2, I would end up not liking the rest of the series, and it would just bring down the whole memory in my head. So I'm kind of just fine putting it in my head that it was fine, but that's it. Let's not ruin it. But again, usually people that did like book 1 end up enjoying the rest of the series. I just don't want to ruin it for myself. So yeah, definitely not planning on continuing the series. Warcross. I did have this book, so really I'm not planning on continuing the series for sure. It kind of felt like a YA sci-fi version of Ready Player One, and Ready Player One had some cringy bits, and I feel like this was the case too in here. I think my main issue was the fact that the main female character could not have been more bland. You're repetitively told that she has rainbow hair because that's the only thing that she has going for her. And I hated how it was supposed to be her being like a hacker that goes into this like virtual world and like she can hack anything, but then you're not told anything about it, like ever. It's just there for her to be quirky and different. And like literally you're told that she, that's how she learned, okay? She unfocused her eyes on the screen and things pop. I cannot deal. And I ended up putting down the book when I realized that there was going to be a very, very cringy romance. So I never finished it, so obviously I'm not planning on continuing. And honestly, this is one of those that I have like no issue not continuing because I could rant about this book. Can we even talk about the fact that like you learned, it's not a spoiler, I never give spoiler, plus I didn't finish the book, so really, is it really a spoiler? You learn that she has like a criminal record, but then it's like because she did something good, and it's like, wow, you're such a badass. And again, let's not even go there. We're staying positive today. But yeah, I will not be continuing Warcross for sure. And then last but not least, this one will absolutely not come as a surprise. Aragorn. I keep calling it Aragorn because it reminds me a lot of Aragorn from Lord of the Rings, which this book is heavily inspired by it. Honestly, I just tried to finish this book. I actually did finish this book. I listened to it as an audiobook, which was again incredibly painful and made the bad writing very obvious. And I understand that it was written by the author when he was 15, but it doesn't matter. It was published. You're sure it's self-published, but it was published, so I'm perfectly allowed to bash it. And it was painful, just very, very painful. And I've been told so many times that it only gets worse. So it doesn't make me want to continue. Ever. So I'm satisfied that I tried because it's a very, very popular YA fantasy series. A lot of people grew up reading it. I love reading about dragons, but don't do this to yourself. Just don't do it to yourself. Actually, if you have any recommendations for books with dragons, feel free to let me know because I just read not too long ago The Priory of the Orange Tree, which had dragons. So that was a lot more satisfying than Aragorn. So those are all the popular book series that I am not planning on continuing. Definitely give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Definitely subscribe because I'm planning on doing a version where I talk about popular book series that I haven't finished, but I'm not sure if I want to. So you can always vote in that video coming up. I will be putting other videos on the screen that I recommend you check out, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.